Welcome to Breaking North. I'm with John Kevill, vocalist of thrash metal band Warbringer. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being on it.
Hey, what's up, man? Nice for having me on the show, dude.
Absolutely. Let's get into it. So as you were just saying, you're about ready to get on tour right now. You're prepping, and you guys are pros. You take care of yourself, from what I've heard. You drink lots of water. You just got done with a run. You're rehearsing last minute.
Well, I mean, I guess I have to emphasize that stuff, at least in my own head, because it's my natural tendency to like slam hamburgers and drink beers and like blaze it every day. So on tour, I have to kind of like not do that stuff if I want to like do an hour plus of the kind of level of performance we're trying to. So it's like I gotta kind of hammer myself into that shape because normally I'm just chilling, man.
Yeah. Have you always kind of been like that? Have you always just like, I guess, were you always just like a stoner back in high school that just kind of
Yeah,
like playing around?
yeah, it's kind of how I got into metal and stuff in the first place. Is like, it was weird. I remember when I was like way younger. I remember I felt like when I was listening to music, I could never hear like the guitars plus the drums at the same time. I would have to focus on like one or the other. And I started blazing, and then I'm like, oh, I hear it all together now. And that's kind of the thing that sold me on smoking. Actually, was that
Like, this is the thing for me. This is my drug.
stuck with me ever since. But like, don't kid yourself. A lot of stuff is drugged, whether prescribed or not, or like coffee in the morning fucks me up more than weed half the time.
I agree. I tried to limit my coffee intake in general because I don't know. There's a lot of anxiety going on in the world, and it's like a good glass of water and just like getting out in some sunshine usually does a lot better for me than that.
Uh,
Um,
I feel that, man, because like I get anxious on coffee and I'm like kind of addicted to it, man. I gotta dial myself back because I had some coffee this morning without like having any breakfast. I did that whole thing and I was just sitting in my house doing nothing, like not doing the stuff I gotta do and just going like and like just thinking in a circle.
yeah. When do you
Yeah.
actually go on? When do you actually go on tour? When does
We're
this
le-
start?
we're leaving on Tuesday, and I am still doing my teaching job during this year when I'm on tour. So I will be teaching math class on Monday, and playing metal show on Tuesday. That's my week.
Yeah. Tuesday, September 13th in Fresno.
Yeah, we're doing rehearsal every night up till then. We got like 20 songs going in the repertoire, so it's a wider bunch than we had available on the last tour. I'm stoked about it.
Is that what is that, like an hour and a half for you?
20 songs, probably more than that. I don't think we'll ever be able to play all of those in one set, but something like hour 45, 2 hours ish when you actually take the in-betweens into account.
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
but what we like to do is have a mostly kind of planned out set, and then kind of halfway through we have a couple rotating spots. We like to be able to rotate, try stuff out, mess with it a bit, but we usually stick to the same basic skeleton because you don't want to be throwing a totally different set out every night. You never get to kind of get the reps in that way.
Yeah, and if like you're feeling a certain song at a certain time, that's always nice to kind of back off, especially if you need to give your vocals a break or you're just feeling amped up and you want to get the crowd going harder.
There is no break. There is no break.
Yeah,
It does.
not for you.
No, I mean the stage and the schedule and the show dates do not give a fuck how you feel. If you're sick, whatever. That's why I try to live different on the road because I don't want to like ever let a fan down because I could see myself, my younger self, in the back of the room being like, huh, he didn't do the stream like he did on the album. I'm that motherfucker.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't want
you're that kind of metalhead. You're the cynical, like, I need to, I want to see it just the way it's supposed to be.
I want the full deal. Yeah, I don't want the like 75% intensity version, especially of myself. I get it. I'm not like I'm perfect every show, far from it. But it's the trying your best to like give the sickest, most intense show possible that for me is like very like true metal isn't a specific sound or genre or something. It's that.
Hmm. Hey, let's go back. How'd you get into music? How'd you start? When did you start singing? What's your indoctrination?
Basically just Warbringer. Like I had zero experience in music before it. I kind of like my family was sort of like white picket fence suburbs, and sort of the assumption was that I would do something like more academic or whatever, basically. And my parents are still like, when are you finishing school? That's like, whenever I say I'm going on tour, I still get that. And even though I got a degree, I just don't have a master's yet, because I gotta like splice back and forth. So basically, like none of that at all. I kind of got into, like, I had a couple. There was like the sort of new metal era, which got me to an Ozfest in 2001 when I was like 15 or something. And I saw Black Sabbath. I got the Black Sabbath best of. I had a year where I like listened to nothing but Ozzy Osbourne and associated stuff that had Ozzy Osbourne in it. And that then like that kind of led to just all the rest of the classic metal stuff. Took me a couple years to like get into harsh vocals, but eventually I did, with some early stuff of that flavor being like, Children of Bodom, Hatebreeder, and stuff like that. And then from there, kind of into just like old thrash and just old metal in general.
Yeah, how old were you when you started Warbringer?
19.
19. Okay, that sounds about right.
So, kind of like starting to get into rock music, like early teens, but in a very more like mainstream of the time thing. Get into what I would consider more legit stuff like later teens. And by like the time we're starting Warbringer, we're digging around looking for all the, all the like the B and C tier, just commercial profile, because I think some of those records are as good or better as the top tier ones. But that kind of stuff in the old thrash movement, and we were like debating together which record's cooler than which, and we were super nerdy about it for a while. And that's how we were starting the band. We're basically some suburban kids who like old metal for some reason. I had to go like 2 towns over to find anybody else who I knew who cared about it, basically. So it was like, it took like an hour and a half of drive, as 2 hours to get everybody together for practice then. But I would do it every week, and I was so excited for it back then, and we had no idea what we were doing, and it took us like months to finish playing a song actually, and it was pretty much pure trial and error for me, is how I remember it.
Was this LA?
This was it's in like Ventura County, so gotcha. The county north of LA. I'm in LA County proper right now, with all the asphalt I can eat, and that's. Yeah, I grew up more in the suburbs. My parents are middle class. Given the general evolution of America, I am not. I get a nice chunk from, hey, I want to be a musician. Oh, that kind of.
What is the middle class anymore, anyway?
Oh, yeah, let's not go too into that.
No, let's just do that. Let's talk about that only right now. Just kidding. Well, that's really close to Ventura.
Sound even more angry than I do on the records. No, all that kind of stuff. Like, I think basically one thing I've been thinking a lot recently is, if people are like, why are you into that angry metal stuff? I'm like, why aren't you? Are you paying attention to the fucking world around you or not? Like, if you don't think there's any reason to be upset with the current status quo, and you don't connect with the emotion of feeling generally like a fucking rat in a cage and being angry and wanting to like punch the sky, I don't get how you couldn't feel that right now.
Yeah.
The general story of the last, 40, 50 years of human civilization. And I'm like, oh, I'm born into that. Oh, I got a lot to look forward to, don't I?
Yeah. How does it, what sort of like age range are you teaching at school? What do you think about the next generation coming up? And I don't know, your kids are listening to music and you're like, hey, have you ever tried listening to like Anthrax?
Oh, they generally got no idea, but that's fine. It's funny, a lot of stuff that I take for granted, that like every kid's seen Terminator, right? No, so it's funny. I throw some of that stuff at him here and there. I'm actually teaching at an Orthodox Jewish school, which I'm some kind of scientific humanitarian atheist agnostic, but respect for all peoples of the earth and all that, so it's no problem. And I have a great time teaching there. It's my 3rd year, and so it's interesting. I'm kind of the weird one at the school, and every now and then, if I had too much coffee, I'll stay after class and they'll start asking me stuff like, so tell me about the CIA, that one. Oh yeah. And I kind of feel like sometimes I'll be talking about stuff and I'll be like, wait a second, should I be talking about this one? but generally, you want to teach the kids about the real world. I kind of got shoehorned into teaching math, but if it were my choice, I would be like, oh, right. So here's a course on why basically a small minority has owned everything for basically every period of history in every country, that kind of stuff. Because most people, I think, don't fully kind of like, I think most people kind of know that in the back of their head, but having sort of the material evidence laid out is a different story.
Yeah, and it'll come. People will figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I want to be in education for. It's like a different side of the reason that I want to make angry thrash music is because I sort of just feel this way about the time I exist in and all of that.
Hmm. Um, let's get on some music. So, how would you say the state of thrash metal is? What in general?
That's a complicated question, and I have a lot to say about that.
Oh, good. We're on a podcast. Let's do it.
Yeah. So basically, double-edged sword, like many things. On one hand, so I'm really happy that Warbringer's been a part of a movement of many bands. None can take sole credit, certainly, that starts up around the mid-late 2000s and kind of continues to present with sort of an ebb and flow in how much is coming out and what's getting how much attention, etc. Also, many of the classic era bands are now start turning to a more thrash metal oriented style, or they reunited and just started existing again. And I think all of that kind of feeds into each other. So I think all that's really good. I think basically that's the plus side, and I think the downside though is I think basically every genre of music that exists is somewhat oversaturated, and the amount of music that like exists and comes out sort of outpaces people to keep up with it. I also think music and culture in general is kind of stuck in a weird freeze frame where you can kind of just look back and recombine stuff. And I don't know if I've heard anything in any style where I'm like, oh, this is a totally new thing in like the last years or something. I mean, that's kind of a blanket statement, but what I'm saying. I don't think there's been like a totally new metal genre to come into existence that's like a full like actually metal genre and not wear these hats and we sing about this or something like that that gets called a genre. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting position, and I think where we are too, where we start our band in the mid late 2000s, our first release is 2008. First thrash metal releases are like 83, 82 if you're going to look at certain demos. And that's a long fucking time between. So you're kind of, I think, just playing metal or hell, any guitar based rock and roll in general, like wider than metal. You have the problem with basically this is like a 50-year-old style of music, and a lot of music has come out. So it's harder and harder as each new record gets added to the pile, kind of just by process of elimination. It gets harder and harder to stand out, to be distinctive. And there's a kind of, I think, jadedness to just music listening in general right now because of unprecedented access to, a little bit of everything all of the time, as one guy put it. So I think all that's true at once, and that's what I think about where music's at today, or thrash metal in particular. That I like the pieces are coming out, and I'm happy the style still exists.
And so in another interview I saw of you, you kind of talked about how you guys are unabashedly just we are thrash metal. That is what we do. And yeah, is that am I right? Is that correct?
Fuck yeah, it's a legitimate style. It deserves to be played. It speaks directly to, I think, legitimate material anger of the modern condition, and it contains a lot of the best stuff about just like metal and punk rock in terms of the energy level, in terms of the attitude, and I think that's like a pretty great place to be. And also, it's one of the best things to hear if you just want to like feel awesome and badass. If you're just driving around, listen to a tough ass, like tough ass mid pacer rips that are all over classic thrash, like rules. So there's all that at once. That's just what I love about it, and I think I'm just gonna love that my whole life. I'm at the point where like, yeah, I will never get sick of this. This speaks to me a certain way, and if like people who aren't into just like those kind of riffs or whatever, I'm like, are you hearing the same thing I am? That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, like this is
So
badass.
yeah, it's just straight badass. It's pure metal. It's there's not like too much pretentiousness or anything, but yet I think it's still a pretty like I think it has like the core feeling and energy of it has a lot of artistic legitimacy at the same time. Yeah, I think thrash metal is a pretty great style. And also, people often say like it's a really limited style, and I would strongly disagree. I would compare like I don't know, compare like Heathen Breaking the Silence to Demolition Hammer to I don't know, like the First Destruction record or something, or like all these have different guitar tones, different vocal styles, different songwriting approaches. I need to bring like Coroner or something into the picture. You could bring up Watchtower or Acid. Like there's wildly different shit that went very different directions. There's like DRI and the crossover approach. So there's like I don't know 5 or 6 major schools of thrash just in the classic canon, not even getting into the post 2000s era. That's kind of how I see what we're doing. I'm trying to like, okay, we are big fans of this style, and not only thrash metal, but early death metal, speed metal, certain power metal. It's not too fluffy, etc. Black metal, all of that, and just sort of the classic pure metal canon. When I say metal, the kind that makes you go like, that. I just want to do everything I love about that kind of refined and brought through my and all the players the fine players in the band, all of our own kind of interpretation, our favorite stuff, our like dream team version of thrash metal, if you will. That's kind of what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
What if we it's like such and such album with a vocal part like the, and it's just like trying to take what we love, filter it through ourselves, and kind of refine you the most like refined, tightest, best you can. So there's this Bruce Lee quote I like where it's not about adding to yourself, it's about subtracting, strip away the inessential. I kind of think that more and more as we go on. We did the one really experimental record, Empire's Collapse, which kind of went every direction. And I think having done that, we kind of zeroed in on, all right, here's all the stuff we can really do that really feels right for Warbringer. And I think we've kind of got a pretty sound going on the last 2 records that I do think is quite distinctive. And I think even if you go into our early work, there's like even the first record, which is the most like, yes, we like 80s thrash that we ever got. I think there's a distinct hybrid of like the Bay Area and German styles on that one, because we listened to both of that, which is something, that in the original time, it was kind of more regional and stuff because of the way people interacted with music fundamentally.
Yeah, and I guess what do you think has changed most in the band since War Without End to your latest album?
Oh, just freaking everything, man. I'm a fundamentally different person. I'm not the same me, and neither is anyone else who was involved in the record, It's the difference between a bunch of kids making their first record with all the demo songs we wrote in our garage versus a band that's now pushing 15 going on 20 years or something, somewhere in there. On record 6 trying to top ourselves. So there's a certain like energy to the early ones and most like first thrash demos, albums, stuff like that I find really cool, where it's that unpolished, we're playing a little faster than we really can, all that. So now it's a much more like refined, tightly focused thing. I think I'm a better lyricist and stuff, but there's just some straight like fun lines and stuff I have on the first one. So it's like I would write the same things now because I'm not the same person. I'm coming from a different place. So I don't know. It's an interesting and weird one. Honestly, it's a fucking hell of a trip to go listen to Young Self.
Mm-hmm.
Because often you're fairly keenly aware of your own development, and that means your limitations. Oh, I used to not be able to do this. The technique wasn't as good. I didn't like the way I enunciated as well, so on and so forth. But like, that's what improvement's all about, is trying to move from somewhere to somewhere. And so I really like our old records, and at the same time, I'm like, oh, geez, sometimes I think a lot of things about it.
Yeah, it was a long time ago as well. So yeah.
I still love Final Five. They're still fun as fuck.
What's the song that everybody wants to hear off your early albums?
There is like one.
It's just everything.
Between a few of them. There's a few staples. Combat Shock was the closer for like aeons, for every set we played. And big like dramatic before that last riff, the that one. So, and usually get a pit. That was a great pit moment. Typically for the set, we still do that. Just not every time now. Total War, of course, has always been a staple. We don't always play it, but sometimes we do. And let's see, Living in a Whirlwind was a live staple forever. It kind of bumps elbows and competes with Remain Violent for slot, but we're going to be rehearsing it tonight, so we'll probably be pulling out some on this tour. Severed Reality has also been in the live set more shows than not since we wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to hear, but that's what we play. I don't have a perfect survey of everyone what they want to hear.
Yeah. What were some of the first like venues that you guys started playing in? What kind of like gave you your feet? What places do you kind of have good nostalgia for just getting you guys started?
The first show we ever played, I don't think the place exists anymore, but it was a place called the Harmony Sweet Cafe in Simi Valley, California. We played a 5-song set with 2 covers. We did an Enza Ferrum cover, oddly enough, Guardians of Fate from their first album. We did a lot of stuff then. And we did, and somebody said, "Take off your shoes," and I did. And I lost my shoes. Yeah, so that was our first show. It was a pretty standard, like, "This is our first show, guys." You know, it was one of those. And it went from there. It was about 6 months after we started the band. After that, we started playing places like the Cobalt Cafe in Canoga Park, the Knitting, which is a pretty small, dingy little place that a lot of local bands play at. We had some killer shows there. The Knitting Factory in Los Angeles is kind of exist. Used to have a lot of shows because as we started doing our first shows, we began to first just move in more into thrash and our listening, our writing, because it was still pretty new to us at the time we started the band. And started to learn that there were other guys who were like, "Wait, you guys, you know Razor? What?" You know, that kind of shit. No, I thought nobody cared about this stuff, right? I thought everyone was at the time, metalcore was what was big, you know, and we were sort of like, no, about that. And I just was like, you know, so that was really cool that there was a scene, and for a while there, before anybody got signed, there was like Merciless Death, Fueled by Fire, and us. They had started a little before us, and there and several other bands, Witch Haven, Malicious Assaults, etc., etc. A whole LA thrash scene of that era that they were selling out shows at like the Whiskey and the Knitting Factory, pure local bands, none of whom had an album. So that was really exciting, and it was a really special time in my life being a part of all that. Very a lot of youthful excitement, and that sort of led to, you know, people in LA who ran metal labels kind of like, "Oh, well, you know, local bands we never heard of are selling out shows. Let's check it out." So a lot of these bands did get signed and put out at least 1 or 2 albums, and we kind of just stuck it longer out of tenacity, craziness, who knows. But oh, and the Whiskey a Go Go we used to play all the time, and we still do. Just we don't pay to play to go on before tours or anything like that anymore. Pay to
That's what
play.
that place is now.
It's what it's been for at least as long as I've been playing, and pay to play shouldn't exist anywhere. That's my opinion on that.
Nah, I agree. And you're playing there at the end of this tour with Heathen and Misfire, right? Is that correct?
We sure are. It's going to be great. By the way, I did a whole other interview the other day, and I forgot to comment on this. It's crazy to me. We got Heathen on our tour. What the fuck? I was going back and listening to Breaking the Silence, Victims of Deception. Those are fucking good albums, man.
It's fucking rad. Yeah, I interviewed David this morning.
Oh, nice. I was doing Evolution of Chaos yesterday in the car. It's fucking great, you know. They put out a lot of really, like, they've had a high bar for quality their whole career, as far as so I'm really excited to go. I've never seen the band live, so I'm looking forward to.
How did you guys connect? How did this happen?
Oh, the same way every tour happens, booking agents. It's way less sexy and impersonal. You know, everyone wants to think it's like, oh, and then the guy from this band called up his buddy in this band was like, "Hey, dude," and they're all like, you know, I wish you were more like that, but no, it's there was like some agents doing negotiations. We on our end supported the idea. We're like, yes, if we can get Heathen to go on tour with us, let's absolutely do that. That would be sweet. Let's do what we need to do to make that happen. Because just through the like email pipeline that came up, and I sort of jumped on it. I thought that would be awesome. So I'm really excited it's happening. It's sort of a milestone for the band because we got a band that influenced us on the bill with us, and that's just great. And Warbringer supported a ton of bands from our influence too. But this is the other order, which is kind of crazy, and it's a
Yeah, no, it's pretty wild that you guys. I mean, you were citing them at the start of this interview, so it's pretty rad that you actually get to do that in general. And they seem like great guys, just really cool guys to hang out with. So super stoked for you guys, and I'm super glad you guys are coming to Santa Cruz as well.
yeah, and I hope a great opportunity for any of the fans of our band who maybe are like younger metal fans and know the modern era better than like the classic era to like go and find out about a great fucking metal band, you know?
Yeah, and you were
And
kind of talking about underdog bands or something that you guys really like to listen to, find these like kind of maybe off the beaten path. And I hate one of the first things on their Wikipedia says though they never became successful, very like successful, and I'm like, why the fuck does it have to say that? Like,
I know, as if like the fact that not a ton of people bought, like compared to the Black Album or whatever, that less
yeah,
people deception makes the opiate of the masses riff crunch any less hard.
yeah,
That's such a good one. That's one of those mid-paced ones I was talking about. A really good one. It's like, dude, I sometimes I'll like take a riff like that and fucking loop it because I just want to like, man. Uh, I totally agree. There's all kinds of stuff. Who kind of struck gold commercially in that whole circus is not the same as who made good records. It would care about as a music listener. If it's not who made good records, I think you're fucking nuts. You know.
yep. What did you guys have any sort of aspirations when you first started Warbringer? What was the idea?
I just wanted to be in a metal band, man. I liked metal a lot. Eyes every part of Blind Guardian, and then there was Silence, which is like a 14-minute thing. It's a great fucking piece. Or here, let's see if I can go to sleep listening to Darkness Descends. I can. You know, right?
Yeah,
You get used enough to that speed, and it kind of like when you kind of like get yourself in that headspace where the speed becomes normal, it's a weird mental thing, you know?
yeah.
So I would do stuff like that, and I was just a weird fucking kid, basically. And
That's super interesting. Is that something that kind of do you go into like a trance state a little bit when you're on stage, or do you really like try to connect? What's your thoughts?
I got no idea what I'm doing on stage, man. I'm straight autopilot. I don't know where it comes from, and my perception of time and memory is heavily altered while on stage. When I think back of any show I've ever played, and that's why I kind of hate "What's your favorite show?" questions, because I'm like, dude, I wasn't there when I was doing it.
Yeah, ask
I
somebody else.
else, man. I was in the realms of metal. It's like the place I go kind of in my head is sort of what I try to channel, honestly, is myself first learning about really evil fucking thrash riffs in my room alone on the I try to channel that. That's just like because the gestures, the faces I do, that's like just how I feel listening to stuff. So I kind of go that I'm like actually very introverted and in my own head in a weird way, even though you're on the stage performing to everyone. I look at people and stuff, but it's like I'm not fully there. It's strange.
So let's talk about the lineup a little bit. Who do you have going right now, and what are their sort of influences? How do you guys write right now? What's sort of how does the band branch out?
Well, we're gonna hit a milestone if we can keep this lineup for another record, which I believe we will, because it's been pretty darn stable for a while now. But we've got we can have we've never had the same exact record on two records, the same exact lineup on two records. Sorry, and I really hope that we can actually achieve that here. I think it's the strongest lineup, certainly just playing and performance and like tightness and musicianship wise we've ever had. With Let's go through it. We got myself on vocals, Adam Carroll on guitar. Adam Carroll has been there, so Adam and I are the two that have been there since the beginning. Adam was drums on the first demo, actually. Yeah. And then we got Carlos Cruz on drums, but Carlos Cruz also plays guitar, and he records and stuff. So he's kind of like the command center, if you will. And he does a lot of the writing. It's like Adam, me, and Carlos. It's sort of the main team, and we've done a whole like little mini documentary about writing weapons, even because we have a pretty interesting process that'll start in multiple different ways, and we both sometimes will start with Adam or Carlos wrote all these riffs, and now here, let me come up with an idea for it and modify it to fit that idea. Or other times, here, I have this idea for these rhymes and these words, can we write riffs around it that sound like this and have this feel? And we do. And so we've written it both ways, starting with music, starting with lyrics, starting with riffs from Carlos, starting with riffs from Adam, and Chase and Chase on guitar and bass. They all write their own parts in there. And what we did is we actually put a lot of parts to highlight their playing and musicianship on Weapons of Tomorrow. So like the first song has a 1.5-minute guitar solo in the middle of pure shredding because we think we have a really great lead player, and we try to put spots where the players are able to do what they do best and really shine. Or check out Chase Bryant's bass throughout the whole of Heart of Darkness. I think some moments where they really, really contributed a whole lot to the songs and how they came out with their playing.
Oh, what sort of character do you think you evoke? If you had to like draw this character, how would you do that?
Sort of a guy who's like losing his mind and kind of alternating between being like, I don't know, like the voice of a tyrannical government, like the guy at the end of 1984 who's like, here's why we're doing all this. I kind of like sort of switching between that persona and like a dude who's trapped under it, and also kind of that's kind of the character I want to sort of be doing. And also like kind of coldly cynical and cruel and kind of like mockingly ironic about things. I like one of my favorite lyrics I did in recent was just the title track "Woe to the Vanquished," because it's like, okay, here, what happens if the Roman army comes to your town? That kind of stuff. And then the narrator, the speaker in that song is like, oh yeah, what are you gonna do about it? Like, well, you think I like, it's sort of a person who's going mad from the state of things and reality.
Well, shit. So I mean, dude, your vocal range is really insane. You do lots of like little things, and you said this is your first band, but have you ever like, uh, is there anybody that kind of took you under your wing, or is this purely just you just chugging it out? How have you not hurt your voice?
That's how I have it. Or, there's a bit from the old X-Men cartoon or something. There's something with Wolverine in it where they ask him if it hurts when he does the claw thing, and he's like, every time, bub. People are like, doesn't that hurt your voice? Yes. Yeah. Pain is what makes it sound the way it does. And it's not like I'm like, or anything. I'm used to it. The amount of like throwing yourself into it is what makes it metal, in a sense. And no, like, my own mom told me I couldn't sing once when I was growing up. And so I'm still not like a strong, I would say, singer. I have really good projection, timing and stuff. My pitch is pretty weak because I'm not like a player or anything. So I do really well at what I do, where I get to focus on, lyrics and coming up with like evil ideas and phrases and stuff. And then just delivery. How do you make each line sound dementedly wicked? Where do you put the shrieks and how do you do them? And just all theatricality that I see in old metal vocalists. Kind of one of the things I say to myself that I want to do is kind of take the technique and style of the rapid fire barkers, Tom Araya on Rain and Blood, Traza on Pleasure to Kill or Extreme Aggression or something, Don Dottie on Darkness Descends, Pat Lind on Spectrum of Death, very underrated vocal performance. All that kind of stuff, the rapid fire, machine gun shit, and mix it with some of the theatricality and thespianism of like Dio, Dickinson, Halford, Eric Adams, vocalists like that.
It's for the fans, it seems like.
Pretty much. It's weird because like I always enjoy it once when I'm out there, but like there's a weird element of dread when you haven't been out for a while. Because like, oh shit, I'm gonna be going. I'm pretty comfy here in my apartment and stuff. I have it. I get to take it nice and easy for the most part. I like it. I like not being in a car more than an hour or two a day, which you already have to just to live in LA.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, but better beats like 7 hours a day, right? So I want less of that, not more. When I go on tour, I get the opposite. But it feels like an extended mission, or at least it did the last time when we did recently with Max and Igor Cavalera. Great tour, by the way. But I'm kind of like, I'm just one of those people. I got a hard time with sudden dramatic change, and I'm about to bring it on myself by doing this tour in my band. So I'm like, I'm gearing up, and kind of up until like a couple days ago, I was like pretending it didn't exist, so I didn't have to think about it.
I think that's a big thing with like artists in general. I mean, I'm a musician myself, so like big shows, big recording projects, and all that stuff. I'm always a little bit not dreading it. I wish there was like a proper word for it. There probably is in like German.
They got one. It'll be really long, but
Yeah,
very descriptive.
yeah, and very hard to say, but very aggressive sounding. But
Yeah.
I could totally see that. What's sort of your, I guess, philosophy on art and music? What sort of movies do you like? What sort of outside of music stuff do you do enjoy?
Oh, a lot of stuff. My thing recently, I've been just nerding out super hard. I have a Space Marine Warhammer 40K army, and I play pretty competitively at a local shop and try to like figure out what's the smartest play here. I always love my strategy war games, so it's great doing it physical mode. It's kind of scratch like it is manual video games basically, but I like it better.
So I'm aware of Warhammer. Hammer. Can you kind of explain it to somebody else though?
Okay, basically, it's a sci-fi future. Here, there's a plug for you, Games Workshop. Woo. It's a sci-fi future universe that's like the darkest imaginable, and it sort of has a weird mixture of some pretty good, like philosophical musings on the future destiny of mankind and on power and civilization itself. And then kind of like that mixed with some straight 15-year-old like, oh, these space guys are fucking cool, look at that, he's a laser gun and power armor, whoa. So but it's ridiculously dark, and there's a great imperium of mankind that's like space fascists, and they're supposedly the good guys in the setting, and they're straight genocidal. They want to kill every species that isn't humans. There's many aliens, some of which are completely horrific, some of which are ancient and wiser than humans. And then there's like demons from space hell. Have you ever seen the movie Event Horizon? That's kind of a good starting point. So space hell is also trying to consume reality. So in this setting, there's no room for any human softness, and anything good about the human race was forgotten 10,000 years ago. All they are is cattle for an endless galactic war that they are slowly losing.
Fuck yeah.
It's awesome. It's so metal. Bolt Thrower Realm of Chaos album is actually one of the things that got me into that whole thing, because that's a sick fucking record.
So this is a game.
War, and this is all everything I just described is the lore for said
Yeah.
war game. Have a sci-fi war game, you need cool sci-fi.
Yeah.
So
I had never heard the whole backstory for that. That's way sicker now.
oh yeah, it's that's the basic idea, and then all that's a nice little setting for you to have your little fucking space dudes roll dice and shoot stuff.
Yeah,
But
I got some at Comic Con when I was a young kid, and then I think none of my friends wanted to play it with me, and then it just didn't happen.
dude, I was into the fantasy one when I was like 17 before I started Warbringer actually, and then kind of like the band replaced that. And so COVID, when I'm stuck here for 2 years, I did it. I painted up an army, and that's been my hobby. The other one is it was my wife and I's 5-year anniversary this summer, and so we got a kayak. So I've been going out to the lake like once a week for a while. It's great.
What lake in Ventura?
Oh, I'm in Los Angeles, but
Oh, sorry, you're in Los Angeles. Yeah, that's where you're from. Yeah.
not that far. It's California, but Lake Castaic, Lake Pyramid, Lake Piru, stuff like that. Just all the lakes around here. But it's been pretty great.
Right.
Dude, there was a goose with a broken limb and its bones sticking out, and the thing still managed to walk and fly and swim. We fed it bread, but it looked like it got hit by a boat or something. It was living there, and apparently, like the lifeguard and the people around the lake knew it and had a name for it.
Damn.
There you go.
That sounds like a song right there. Yeah, I used to live in LA. I would, whenever I needed to get out of the city, I'd go to Pyramid Lake.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice. Yeah,
No, it's like yeah, I really enjoy it, dude.
it's
Just
beautiful.
I need to like not see concrete for a minute sometimes.
That was my thing. I went to Musicians Institute, and I lived right in Hollywood, like right behind the Chinese theater, and I went crazy. Like I would have to go to a park just to sit next to a tree, and I kind of had to like shoo away some like bums. I'm like, can I get a little time over here? Like, I just need to sit down.
Can't you see me and the tree are having a detailed conversation? Come on.
And I was like, I need to have one.
Get it, man. I get it. Yeah, sometimes it's like one thing is if you get out of here, you'll sort of realize, oh wait, what's that thing missing? Oh yeah, the hum of cars. That's like not there. You notice it's you get to the point where you don't notice its presence, but you do notice its absence.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to say that. Why do you live in LA?
Because I still am in this band. That's
There you
basically, and because my life is here, all the people I know are here. But we're gonna probably gonna move in a year or two. Chase Becker moved up to Washington around the beginning of COVID, and the band's still doing fine. We still operate. We fly him down a week before, and we rehearse, and it's just fine. So I'm probably gonna do that at some point. But yeah, for now, I still got I got my teaching job here. I got the band, and that's just where we already live. Moving somewhere else is a big deal, and you have to actually find where you're gonna move and all that.
And as you said, you like being in your comfy zone in your spot with your routines.
Yeah, dude, that's been a problem with me forever. Is like if I'm like somewhere and I get used to doing something, I don't really want to like stop doing that thing. I just want to keep doing it. So like at one point, that thing for me was tour. Like early on, that's all I knew and all I did for like the first 5 years of my 20s or something. So
Yeah.
it's like, I had to like my wife had to like house train me almost because I was too used to living in a goddamn van like a complete animal.
Yeah, and you've talked about in the past. And where was I going with this? Oh
I
my god.
talked shit the pastor myself to remember, let alone I'm surprised you
Yeah,
do.
I'm doing pretty good to remember where I'm at, but that thought just sailed away. What do you guys have coming up next for the band as after this tour?
Well, one thing to note I don't think I remarked on yet is we're releasing a music video. It's from Weapons of Tomorrow, so it's not new music, but it's a new video. It's for Crush Beneath the Tracks, and it'll come out on Monday. So we filmed that to support the tour. Came out pretty thick, I think. It's a really good, just like headbanging, performance-oriented video with some nice intercut footage of modern AI and manufacturing dystopian shit, which is the theme of that song.
Huh.
Uh,
Do you use
so
AI for the video, or is it about AI almost?
There's just like footage of modern manufacturing processes. We got some shots of like a robot arm playing a girl in chess. Got the director put in a good little juxtaposition where there's a guy petting one of those robot police dogs, and then a homeless guy with a real dog that's hungry. Stuff like just dystopian imagery. I think they did a good job with that because that's the theme of the song is progress as a thing that like crushes you and squeezes the humanity out of you rather than advance in any meaningful way. That's what tracks are, is that progress. It's a metaphor. you know
You sound like a history teacher.
I studied history. Yeah, that's my thing.
I kind of almost had that idea. I was like, oh, they put this guy on math because I don't think they try not to teach as much history anymore.
Oh no, call it social studies, and they could call it propaganda if you wanted.
Yeah. What's your prediction for the next in 5 years for humanity?
Oh shit, I don't know. That's hard to say. Honestly, right now, here I can't tell you in any specific time frame, but I do believe if we basically keep doing things as a civilization the way we have since about the Industrial Revolution, with modern consumer society and everything, that you're looking at one of two endings to this whole humanity story, and it's environmental collapse, nuclear war. It's not a matter of if, it's which one comes first. So then that hits you as the individual with certain problems, like, okay, I'm married for 5 years with my wonderful wife, right? I'm happy where I am there. And but then I have nagging little thoughts like, if I have kids, is that a crime against those unborn children to bring them into this world where they will have probably no future?
I, dude, and I think about that a lot. I don't think I'm ever gonna have kids. My girlfriend and I are pretty, anything could change, but at the same time, I'm like, there's like not a lot of water left.
No, that the water and then the interconnectedness of the food chain. And I mean, we just got like a 2 week heat wave where, it went down to 98 at one point, and my wife and I are like, oh yeah, so it's a lot nicer today. And it's like fucking 98, it's not 110, so I'm
It
worried.
got that hot.
I'm worried. Oh yeah, dude. I mean, and it's just like there's no sign of any change right now. Like for Exxon buried its own climate change findings in the 70s. They did internal research on it all the way back in the fucking 70s before I was born. ExxonMobil, the company, where they found out that their operations are causing adverse effects on the biosphere and the future of organized human life and all of that. And that then they buried the research findings. They're going to court for it now. They're probably going to get like an $8 million fine or something like that, which and that's what happens for those kind of things. But meanwhile, you go to the CVS and you'll see that the baby formula is locked up.
Yeah.
So the real criminals get are on the yachts, and the desperate the desperate folks, we get to point the finger at them. If you look at that locked up baby food formula at the CVS, who's it being kept from? Like if someone steals it, who's stealing it and why? Versus why aren't they allowed to just have it? Oh, so the guy who owns CVS can see the returns, right? You gotta lock that up with a padlock. You gotta go get the employee to open it with the key, like it's some contraband or something.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, so dude, I basically can't go out on the street without like just being like just fucking seething all the. I try to sort of live in my world of books and like fake ass sci-fi stuff that doesn't exist and whatnot to distract myself from my own anger at reality.
There you go. What does music bring for you? That is
sorry.
Good.
No, that's it. And metal's a great outlet for that same thing. What were you saying?
What is music as a kind of a lighter point, if you will? What does kind of music bring to that in general? Like, what do you like about playing shows? What do you like about the humans that you see at these shows?
Like evil character that I do, but some aspect of my own self, of my own emotion, and other people connect to it, and that just feels great. I'm hardly the first musician to say this. Pretty much everyone does, I think, and rightly so. I really enjoy the idea that I can like give something of myself that's I like to think is unique to me. In our particular band, my particular vocal style, the particular songs that me and my bandmates and friends and stuff wrote. And then the sort of pride of excellence of knowing that we really gave it our 110%.
Thanks for doing this. Let's kind of talk about. There's a question I always ask people, and you've kind of touched on this before, but I just want to get a succinct answer. What is success for you? What is your philosophy on success?
Well, in music or in life or what?
Yes.
Here, it's sure, yes. Being a person who you're proud of to look at the mirror. That's the only one. I say anything material beyond being able to basically remain alive and a decent standard of living and stuff. If you think success is like something like that, or I have multiple these possessions, or you're basically gonna like point to stuff you have and not stuff you are, I would deeply disagree with that version of it, and I would say that actually such an attitude is the problem.
Yeah.
Basically it's about it's like whatever you do, it's about being happy with who you are at the end of the day. And I'm happy with what we've done as a band. I think myself and the band has stayed pretty darn true to the initial artistic vision. One thing I often say to myself when I'm writing new material is, all right, so myself at 19 when I'm just starting the band and I just found out about thrash metal, but I have very strong opinions about what's legit and not, that guy, that fucking kid, if he was in the room looking at us jamming right now, would he think it's sweet? I kind of like, no matter where we go, I have to sort of like retain original purpose. This has to be a band that's about riffs and it shreds and it's fast, like all of that. If I think that's why the like essence never really changed, even though we've had many different members, even though the sound has developed in many ways. It's kind of like different takes at the same thing and kind of getting it the point sharper and sharper. That's how I feel about it. And I think we have done that basically in our career. So for me, that's success, is that our fifth and sixth record show a lot of growth from our first and second. And I think we started at a pretty good place still. So yeah, I just basically think that at the end of the day, I like the records we made. So whether anybody remembers it, whether a band gets more, commercially, gets a higher commercial profile than it has now, or whether it fades into the dust tomorrow, like those records are there. Those records are still going to be sweet. you know that's how I feel about it. So I do. I kind of feel on one hand like I've done most of what I set out to do here, and kind of the thing that's left, I guess, is, well, can I kind of do what I'm doing, better? Can we top Weapons of Tomorrow? Can I make something that hits different? I think I'm gonna. I went on sort of like a World War I obsession period where I read like 10 books on it or something around the time of Woe to the Vanquish, and that bled into Weapons of Tomorrow. But I think on the next record, which I do have a fair number of ideas for, I'm going to kind of like leave the old battlefields alone for a minute, and not saying I won't go back there, but and focus more on like some of that stuff we were talking about earlier about, like, oh yeah, the being a person living in modern life and that existential dystopian, those kind of questions that just existing right now throws at you. And I've already done some of that, turning of the gears, crushed beneath the tracks, whatever. But I think that's kind of the angle I want to go to. The Lord telling you, hey, peasant, this is why I own you and I always will.
Yeah, that's a great start to a song right there.
It's going to be phrased cooler and rhyming. I got a rhyme, but I have lines. I'm just not going to give them to you now.
All right.
Very excited about, actually. I really like it feels very cruel to say, and that's how I know it's good.
That's perfect. All right, so you're going Warbringer, Heathen, Misfire. You're going on tour, starting in Fresno. Then you're coming to Santa Cruz, the Atrium. You'll be here on Wednesday, September 14th.
Guys, our show too. Damn, we better get our act together fast.
Yeah. And then you're going all over the place. Sacramento, Portland. Well, you're doing a good West Coast, Seattle, Boise, Denver, getting around, doing a bunch of other stuff too. Oh, and you're going to Mexico.
Western Center. Yeah, Mexico's coming up after. It's a short leg after. Really excited. Always love going to Mexico. Kick-ass place. Probably best food, my favorite food in the world too. Yeah, seriously. It's just gut food. And yeah, dude, Mexico rules. We did the kind of east and central U.S. because we only did one leg of the Cavalera tour. Symbolic Carnage took the second leg, and we didn't play L.A. on that tour or anything. So we haven't played L.A. since before COVID. So that's going to be the last show on this tour. That's going to be a triumphant return, I feel like, and just the whole tour in general will be. There's a lot of places we've been to many times. I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of familiar faces I haven't seen for like 3 or 4 years now. Since before all this shift in the world that happened, like right as we were putting out our album.
Yeah, it seems like both you and Heathen had pretty much exact same thing happen to you.
So. Yeah, happened to like half the bands in music, basically.
I know. I was supposed to go on tour the next month, and you know how that went. So I guess sort of last thoughts before we wrap this up. Anything you want to say to the fans? Anything you want to just shout out to the Void?
Well, I've been the Void, I think, this whole time. You kind of press a button and I'll just go off and I don't know what direction. But I to the fans, I guess, thank you guys. If it weren't for the fans of the band and basically the interest in the band, I would have no reason to push the way I do. I think just the fact that other people are there and I can see, and like, what, they tell me they care about it because they'll show up and buy a ticket because they'll buy the record, and I talk to them, I see them, and I see the excitement in people's face, and I connect to it because it's how I feel about the metal bands I like. And so honestly, just thanks, fans, because whenever I get that, I feel like mission accomplished and I feel successful in life, going back to that. So honestly, everything, the progression and the whole fact that the band's even around and that I'm still doing this is thanks to you guys. And it's been a great gift to my life that I get to do this, and something I'm really excited about. So that's my message to the fans. I really, every band in the world owes their fans everything.
Yeah. Well, John Kevill, this has been super fun. I also, extra special note, I love that you've just been fucking around with scissors the whole time. It had this menacing vibe to it. Like, I really really felt it. Really felt what you were saying about the band as you were holding scissors, just twirling them around.
Wife's arts and crafts desk right now because the light by my desk is busted. So
I loved it. Yeah, I love that we got that on video as well. That's a good moment. This has been Breaking North. We talked to artists, comedians, actors, chefs, all sorts of things, and kind of see what makes them tick, and just hear about their life and their perspective on art and humanity. Really appreciate you being on the show. Excited to see you. And yeah, anything else? Anything else? We all good, right?
Stoked, man. Hey, talking about all this, I'll tell you what, it's made me stoked to go get my ass into rehearsal because everyone else started around 8, so I got to get over there.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. Thanks for taking the time. Sorry, it's a little went over.
Sorry, it's great. It's a great opportunity to promote the tour. West Coast and Central USA. If you're in the East USA or Europe, we got you guys in the works right now. So keep an eyes peeled for the announcements. The plan is to tour as much as we can basically through the next summer and really give Weapons of Tomorrow that proper cycle it deserves. So that's the goal. That's what we're at.
All right, absolutely. Thank you, John.
Okay, take care, man. Have a